Week 1 is when fantasy managers absolutely lose their mind. A guy had one bad game, he's a complete bust. Had a good game, he's a fantasy football legend. But while everybody else in your league is losing brain cells, we're going to steal their best players on the cheap. I'm going to give you some of my favorite buy lows heading into week 2, and I'm also going to give you some options of players who I would trade for these buy lows that are actually going or being valued similarly to the players I'm going to recommend. And let's start with rookie running back Omarion Hampton. A lot of people already proclaiming this guy a bust after one mediocre game, his first NFL game ever, which by the way came against one of the best run defenses in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs. And sure, there were many runs where he went for a loss, but that offensive line got absolutely blown up by this Chiefs run defense over and over again. Remember, they're trying to adjust to no Rashawn Slater. They've moved Joe Alt from the right side of the line to the left side of the line, and it's been a little bit of an adjustment so far. Granted, he did play left tackle in college, but he didn't last year. He's readjusting. It will get better. Plus, look at his usage. It was absolutely elite. 50 of 62 snaps, 15 of 16 attempts. Najee Harris only 1 attempt. He ran 22 routes, Najee only 5 routes. This guy is going to only get better and better, and they're not going to play the Chiefs every week. They're going to have some softer matchups, and when that offensive line starts to figure it out with Joe Alt on the left side, his lanes are going to be there. And look, if you watch the film, he actually looked good. I mean, sure that you see the runs where he went for nothing, but the runs where the offensive line actually did a decent job blocking, he was breaking tackles, he was always going forward, he showed burst, he's a big guy, but he's got speed. I saw everything I wanted to see from this guy in week 1. I'm ready to go out and steal him from some panicking manager. And while he did have a bad game, it's not like people are going to trade this guy for scraps. You're still going to have to give up something pretty good. But when we look at fantasy calc here, looking at players that are being valued similarly to Omarion Hampton, I would definitely trade away Alvin Kamara right now. Look, Alvin Kamara scored a touchdown. He was solid this week. He's got that name recognition, but only 2 targets on 46 Spencer Rattler attempts. That is not going to get it done, especially in the Saints offense. Or what about another old guy like Tyreek Hill? If somebody out there still believes that Tyreek Hill can bounce back, still believes in this Dolphins offense, and is already panicking on Omarion Hampton, I would just flip Tyreek Hill, go get Omarion Hampton. I want to get away from this Dolphins offense if I can. Now, before week 1 was even played, I already knew I was going to put Calvin Ridley on this video because he was getting the Pat Surtain shadow, and it kind of went as expected. Not very well. Although really he had an okay game that should have been even better because he did drop a couple passes. But I think now is a great time to swoop in and strike for Calvin Ridley. If somebody feels like, hey, this guy was dropping passes, Cam Ward struggled, this guy isn't going to live up to the hype that everybody was talking about this offseason, I'd go try to get Calvin Ridley right now. Because despite the fact he didn't have a great game, look at the way he was used in this offense. A 26.3% first read percentage. But what I really like, what's really encouraging here is 87.5 catchable target rate. 7 of his 8 targets were catchable. He didn't have anything close to that last year. And remember, this was while being matched up with Pat Surtain and Cam Ward, his first NFL start. He had a 25% drop percentage because, yeah, he dropped a couple passes. He's not going to do that every week. We know this is a good wide receiver. As they move against weaker competition here, he's going to have some big games. And Cam Ward, despite the fact that they lost and despite the fact that his numbers weren't great, showed me a lot in a tough matchup on the road for his first NFL start. And look at the Titans' schedule the rest of the way. The Rams this week, the Colts, the Texans. All right, that's tough. Cardinals, Raiders, Patriots. That could be tough with Christian Gonzalez. Colts again, Chargers. Texans, again, a little tough there. Seattle, definitely tough. But then Jacksonville, Browns, 49ers, who just got torched by JSN. Kansas City Chiefs, who just got torched by the Chargers. And then they finish with the New Orleans Saints. This guy could absolutely be a beast almost every single week this year. And in the fantasy playoffs, he could absolutely go off for your fantasy team. And then again, when we look at players who are being valued higher than Ridley or maybe right around Calvin Ridley, I would trade David Montgomery. Look, I know David Montgomery's solid, and he led the team in carries, and he got 4 catches, and he's going to have a fine year. But I think Calvin Ridley has way more upside. If I was deep at running back, I would trade Monty for Ridley. And I would definitely trade Isaiah Pacheco for Ridley. I mean, sure, it was a split backfield. People might be a little nervous about Pacheco, but they're probably also nervous about Ridley. If somebody needs a running back and still believes in Pacheco, I'd make that deal. And I would definitely trade Jalen Waddle for Calvin Ridley straight up. They're being valued right next to each other here. But look, I do not want anything to do with this Dolphins passing attack right now. They looked horrible. This looks like maybe the worst offense in the NFL. Give me Calvin Ridley with Cam Ward way over Jalen Waddle. Now, another wide receiver that I really like who disappointed in week 1 was George Pickens, but I'm not giving up on George Pickens at all. In fact, I'm going out and buying low. One thing we didn't expect, we knew he would get some Quinyon Mitchell. We didn't think the Eagles would completely shadow him with Quinyon Mitchell and then shade the rest of the coverage to CeeDee Lamb. Didn't go as expected, but he still had an okay game considering he had to face one of the top corners, and it should only get better from here. Because there are a couple really encouraging signs for this Cowboys offense. First of all, look at their pre-snap motion and play action rate the last 2 years. Last year, 47%. In week 1, 59% pre-snap motion. Last year, 18% play action. In week 1, 21%. These are cheat codes for NFL offenses. And a cheat code for wide receivers, it's horizontally breaking routes. These are easier throws. You can see here, Jacob Gibbs says, horizontal breaking routes, 49% more likely to draw a target than vertically breaking routes. Last year, the Steelers said, just go run vertical. But look what happened this year. CeeDee Lamb's rate was up from 33.8% to 39%. Okay, a small jump, but look at Pickens. 53% horizontal breaking rate. That is huge. Not only that, he actually had a higher win rate on those horizontal breaking routes than CeeDee Lamb, 35% to 33%. This is going to be great for George Pickens, and he's not going to get shadowed by Quinyon Mitchell every week of the season. On top of that, we know this team is going to be throwing the football a ton. The defense isn't very good, and despite the fact that Javonte scored 2 touchdowns, the running game wasn't very good either. They're going to need to throw the ball 35, 40 plus times every game. Sure, CeeDee Lamb's going to go off, but so is George Pickens. Then again, look at players being valued higher than George Pickens or similar to George Pickens. I'll say once again, David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco. If these guys are like your RB4, RB5, and you need wide receiver help, go get George Pickens. And again, I'll say here, Jalen Waddle. If somebody still believes in the Dolphins, still believes in Jalen Waddle, and is like, nope, I'm out on Pickens, this guy's going to bust again, just give me George Pickens. Get me out of that Dolphins situation. Now, I expected Ted McMillan to have a big game in week 1, and he really should have had a big game. I mean, it was an okay game, 5 catches for 68 yards on a team-high 9 targets, but it should have been even bigger. First of all, look at his usage in week 1. He ran the most routes of anybody on the team. He had the most targets of anybody on the team, the most air yards of anybody on the team, the highest targets per route run of anybody on the team. Do you think he's the number 1 wide receiver here? Yeah, I would say so. But it gets even better. He tied Xavier Legette in first read percentage, and he had a 75% catchable target rate. And look, there were a couple of passes. He had that close touchdown catch. He had a catch on a DPI that I really think he did catch it, but they took the penalty. This could have been a much bigger game. And in fact, when you look at it at expected fantasy points, he ranked 15th among all wide receivers in expected fantasy points at 16.8 in week 1. It's only going to get better for this guy. That was his first NFL game. He's going to get even better. Remember, Brian Robinson only had like 4 catches last year in his first game. He's going to get better. He's going to be great rest of the season. If somebody's already worried, like, oh my gosh, the Panthers are terrible, Bryce Young looked terrible, I got to get away from this guy, he's going to bust, go out and try to get McMillan. And again, I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but if I could trade Tyreek Hill for Ted McMillan right now, I'm 100% doing that. Get me off this Dolphins team. And I know it might sound a little risky, but I think I would trade Terry McLaurin straight up for Ted McMillan right now. Terry McLaurin probably going to get off to a slow start missing that camp. Debo is there, which he didn't have that competition last year. I think this might not be as good a year for Terry as it was last year. And then I'll say definitely I would absolutely trade DK Metcalf for Ted McMillan. I mean, DK Metcalf had an okay game, although one of those catches was a complete fluke that deflected off him, hit his teammate, and bounced back to him. Wouldn't have been a catch. But Aaron Rodgers just threw for 4 touchdowns, had a monster game. And this is all we got from DK Metcalf. Look, he'll be okay, but I'd rather have the upside of Ted. All right, back to a rookie running back, TreVeyon Henderson. Look, I thought maybe it would take some time for the takeover to happen. And look, technically, I guess Ramondre still was the lead, but this was way closer than even I expected. And I think the takeover is going to happen very, very soon here. And I don't want to wait. I don't want to try to time it perfectly. Just let me get Henderson now, coming off a not very good game where people might think again, this guy's not going to live up to the expectations, because this guy had a ton of hype coming into the draft. Now again, when you look at the usage here, technically Ramondre was the number 1. He outsnapped him 66% to 38%. But he only had 2 more carries on those snaps, and he only ran 5 more routes despite playing so many more snaps. But when you look at the production, it's night and day. TreVeyon Henderson, 5 carries, 27 yards. Ramondre, 7 for 15. TreVeyon Henderson, 6 catches, 24 yards. Ramondre, 2 for 12. It's obvious that TreVeyon Henderson is significantly better than Ramondre Stevenson, and it's going to not be long before the Patriots have to say to themselves, we got to get this guy the ball way more. Again, I don't want to miss the boat here. I don't want to try to time it. Let's see him go up, and then it's like too late, right? He has a huge game and it's too late. He's coming off a game where he didn't put up big numbers. He didn't do a whole lot. He didn't make any splash plays. There is a chance to go buy low, but it's got to be right now. And I'm going to pretty much say the same people here. Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. I mean, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, I can pretty easily move these guys for TreVeyon Henderson. Give me the potential league winner here. Again, I know Terry's a little risky here, but I'm just not seeing a big Terry year this year. He'll be fine, but I don't think he's going to have a big a year as he had last year. I'd rather gamble on the upside, the rookie running back, TreVeyon Henderson. From a rookie to a vet, I was pretty out on Davante Adams last week, and I mean, he was okay, 4 catches for 51 yards on 8 targets, but now I'm ready to go buy low on Davante Adams, coming off a down game where Puka Nacua pretty much went off. First of all, when you look at it right here, Davante Adams actually ran more routes than Puka Nacua in week 1. He only had 3 less targets than him, a very strong 0.31 targets per route run. Remember, he had to face a lot of Derek Stingley Jr. in this game. Puka Nacua played his most career snaps ever out of the slot. Davante Adams was stuck outside against Stingley Jr. But thankfully, the schedule gets much better the rest of the way. Tennessee this week. Okay, Philadelphia, yeah, probably going to see a lot of Quinion Mitchell there. Then the Colts, the Niners, the Ravens, they don't scare me. The Jags don't scare me. Saints, Niners again. Okay, Seattle, a little tough there. Tampa Bay, Carolina, Arizona, Detroit, Seattle there, 15-16, a little tough. But then the Falcons in week 17. There's only like 4 matchups here that really scare me on Davante Adams. I think he's ready to be a wide receiver 2 rest of the season, and you don't need to give that up to get him. And I'll say once again, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, if somebody likes these guys more than Adams, I mean, we're talking about, 2 vets, all the vets here, but if somebody thinks those guys have more upside than Adams, just give me Adams. I'd rather have Adams as the wide receiver 2 in the Sean McVay offense than Tyreek Hill as, I guess, the wide receiver 1 in whatever that Mike McDaniel offense is, or DK Metcalf as the wide receiver 1 in that Steelers offense. And then one more running back, Tony Pollard. I was pretty sure I was going to put Tony Pollard on this video, again, going that tough matchup against the Broncos. And look, he wasn't bad in week 1, but he certainly wasn't great for fantasy. But his usage was absolutely off the charts. I mean, you look at here, he played 89% of the snaps, had 18 of the 20 carries, ran 17 of the 19 routes, and had the only target and catch. Now, I will say one thing, one little word of caution here for Tony Pollard is Cam Moore's not a check down merchant, so you can't expect Tony Pollard to catch 50, 60, 70 passes this year. But if he's going to get all the touches in this offense, and again, an offense that's going to get much better with a much better schedule, he's going to be a beast. And I know there's going to be people say, well, what about when Tyjae Spears comes back? No, Tyjae Spears is nothing more than a change of pace guy. He's going to take like the Julius Chestnut role here, except maybe a little bit more. Only a little bit, though. And I know I'm going to say a lot of the same names here because these guys are all being valued pretty similarly, but Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, yeah, give me Tony Pollard if I need a running back. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I would just trade for Tony Pollard no matter what. I will say DK Metcalf's probably a little closer. If you need DK Metcalf, if you're okay at running back, I'm fine holding DK Metcalf here, but if you're deep at wide receiver and you need running back help, I would definitely take Tony Pollard. And then again, if I could flip Isaiah Pacheco or David Montgomery for Tony Pollard, I'm 100% doing that. This guy's going to be the running back 1 in an offense that's going to be much, much better than what we saw in week 1. And then last week, I did put Dak Prescott on the buy low video. I'm going to put him on again because he did not have a great fantasy performance. But if you watched that game, you saw that Dak Prescott played great. And hopefully you realize what a monster this guy could be for fantasy. Look, he played great. His pass catchers, mainly CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, just absolutely let him down. Look at these numbers from week 1 according to Fantasy Points data. 82.4% catchable throw rate, 8.8% hero throw rate, 0 turnover-worthy throw rate, hit 12 dropbacks under pressure, took 0 sacks, and 83 air yards lost on drops, which would have been most of any QB last season. In fact, according to Emmanuel Acho, he had 4 drops worth about 110 yards and a touchdown. Think about how you'd be thinking about Dak Prescott right now if he had another 110 yards and a touchdown in that game. And as I already said with Pickens, this offense is going to be using more play action, more pre-snap motion, which is always good for the passing game, and they're going to be throwing a ton. So maybe you drafted Bo Nix and you're a little nervous right now, or maybe you drafted Jared Goff and you're a little nervous right now. go out, put some feelers out for Dak Prescott. Look at the guys you could trade here. I would definitely trade Caleb Johnson for Dak Prescott. This guy got 1 touch. He played like 2 snaps. He's behind Kenneth Gainwell, like way behind Kenneth Gainwell right now. I'd also trade Brian Robinson. He's just a handcuff. Christian McCaffrey looks like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, sure, it could change at any moment, but if you need a quarterback, it's fine. And then Austin Eckler, I mean, come on, what are we really getting from Austin Eckler or Nick Chubb or Joe Mixon? Really, what are we getting from these guys this year? Just go out and get a QB who could be a monster. And also make sure you stick around and catch all our videos to help you dominate in week 2. Everything you need, you can find it in our playlist right here.